What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to another episode of the Rise to Glory here with Gibraltar Apex. Today is episode 57, and for a second consecutive year, we're going on a holiday to England for a European game. Last year it was to Craven Cottage and to Fulham. Today we're taking on West Ham at the Olympic Stadium. Bit of a trek. Nice to go to a stadium that's not even built in real life. Hopefully it can be accommodating for us. And yeah, going to be a big game for us. West Ham, I believe they are third seed in our Champions League group. If I had to hedge a guess, it's either them or AC Milan kind of seeded third and second in the group. Either way, both tricky teams relative to us, but we're going to give it our best shot here. Speaking of tricky ties, we have played AC Milan since the last episode. There's been 4 games to tell you guys about. In the league, we've continued on our dominant run. The first win of this kind of dominant run was a 3-0 win against St Joseph's. Kept a clean sheet. We had a great record at the end of last year for clean sheets domestically. I believe that is now over 20 consecutive clean sheets in the Premier Division, following the results that have kind of come today. So a really, really good record there. This game, though, good win. Kuka, Evans and Holmes getting the goals. We then took on AC Milan at home. And to be honest, this was an awful game in the first half. We were 4-0 down at the end of the first half, and I was thinking, well, this is deja vu. We've been here before with PSG. You know, how can this get any worse? So in the second half, we went 5-0 down, and it was at that point, I had a piece of paper in front of me. I ripped it up, threw away the script and said, screw it, let's go on attack and see what we can do here. And we scored 3 goals. And I thought for a second there was going to be this crazy comeback happen. Unfortunately, Kuka's goal in the 81st minute was all that we could muster up, as we did lose 5-3. Not a bad defeat, though. I think to score 3 against AC Milan is not kind of a shameful display. But I also think just to kind of, I guess, come back in the way we did and not give up is a pretty impressive sign as well, considering we were, 5-0 down after 60 minutes. It was good to see the players fight back and show some resistance. Anyway, we did bounce back fairly well from that game. The next result we got was a 3-0 win in the kind of league. Good to see Mark Stewart getting off the bat, the young Scottish goalkeeper, our record transfer. Not a player who I've signed for the Premier Division, really. I mean, he's going to score a lot of goals in this division, but he wasn't a player who I brought in to see perform here. But in this competition so far, he has performed really well. And you can see here, Lorenko and Paul Smith also getting on the score sheets. Paul Smith really, really stepped things up, this young Australian. Looks like he could be a fantastic player for us, 18 years old. He's got some potential, and he's been a really consistent performer for us so far this year. And yeah, only a 7.3 rating in the league, but he has, of course, got 4 goals and 7 assists in 7 Champions League games. So, I mean, you really can't complain about performances like that. Also worth noting, Lorenko did get injured. He's out with a thigh strain. I can't remember if that happened in this game or in training. Either way, though, not an injury I wanted. And it is one that means that we are without a real kind of standout right winger in our squad for today's game. Anyway, the last result that we had, really convincing win this one, 6-0 against Hound Dogs, who finished 3rd in the league last year. You'll notice Mark Stewart grabbing 5. That is a league record, 5 goals in a game by one player. It's also a club record in the Premier Division, and well, it was good to see him get all these goals. As I mentioned before, didn't really sign him with kind of goals in the league in mind. Of course, I expected him to get them, but it's not what I'm really going to judge him on. But, I mean, you can't not judge a player on scoring 5 goals in a game and 6 in his last 2. I just hope he can kind of continue a little bit of this form, I guess, into Europe, and also remain fit, because he has had, well, a few injury issues, as you can see here, over the latter stages of this year. Really, since May, he's been out for, a combined total of 12 weeks, so about 3 months injured since May, and we're now in October. He's been basically injured more often than he's been fit. That is a little bit of a concern, but I'm hoping he's going to put that behind him, because he is a player who I have signed with real kind of ambition and intent of having in the first team for the next few years at least. Anyway, in terms of going into this game, we're playing West Ham away from home. I do want to quickly cover the other teams in the kind of Gibraltar kind of league system and how they got on in Europe. No real surprises here. We'll start off with Gibraltar Lions. If we look at their results, you can see they lost Dugarvalpil. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry if you're from Latvia. I was a little bit confused, actually. I looked into these results. This team here, who I'm going to call Footballer Clubs, even though that is just the literal translation of football club, that's what this team is now known as. They play in the second league of Latvia. I'm a little bit confused as to what they were doing in the Europa League, if I'm honest, because, well, judging by this, that's like the second tier. So quite how this team qualified, I don't know. Maybe someone from Latvia in the comments is going to explain to me how this happened, because they didn't win any competition, so I'm a little bit confused as to how they were in that competition. I mean, yeah, answers on a postcard if you know. So yeah, Gibraltar Lions got knocked out there. They actually only lost 3-1 on aggregate. Of course, they got taken over by the billionaire tycoon dude. He's invested a little bit of money into the team, but it's not really worked great for them so far. They're struggling to approach the kind of players that you'd expect them to get. And you can see, whilst they have invested a fair bit of money over the last few years, they've not kind of revolutionised their team. Redero was here, is the only player they actually paid money for this year. Not a bad player, but not a crazy player either. I mean, he adds to their team, but it's not European quality at the moment, their squad, I think it's fair to say. The other teams in the competition, one of which was Hound Dogs, they got hammered. I'm not entirely sure what the score was here. Okay, they lost 6-0 on aggregate, so yeah, not the best result there. And the other team, I believe, was Lynx, who finished 4th last year. And if we take a look at their results, you can actually see here they lost 8-0 on aggregate to Trenton, who is a team who we played a few years ago now, if I remember correctly. I must admit, now that we are 8 years in, a lot of the results kind of all blend into one, and kind of trying to differentiate some of the years of competition is a little bit trickier than it might be if it was only a few years ago and it was fresh in my memory. But anyway, that's what's been going on in Gibraltar. I've talked fairly recently about the Gibraltar national team performance, but just so you guys can see, 154th in the world rankings. Could be a little bit worse. In terms of their fixtures, well, you can see here they've been struggling against, you can see Kazakhstan, Macedonia and Luxembourg. They're in one of the new European friendly leagues, which are being implemented in real life in the near future. They've not done a lot here, I think it's fair to say. If they can finish above Luxembourg, I guess that would be an achievement of sorts. So anyway, that's a little bit of an update about general goings on in this save. In terms of other things, there's not a lot going on. I managed to get the board to increase our scouting range, which is good. As a result, I sorted out some scouting assignments. We're currently scouting the UK and Ireland, Central Europe, and I've also got 2 scouts who are just scouting the world for first team players. So we'll see what they find. Maybe they can find some really good players for us. I wouldn't hold my breath. I've not talked much about the staff in recent years, but to be honest, it hasn't changed a lot. I've kind of just maintained the setup I've had for the last few years. You can see 14 coaches, a fairly large coaching team really, but just a real kind of plethora of nationalities here. And, they get the job done. We have a lot of well-qualified kind of coaches. You can see here I've actually got my Continental B licence. I have been trying to get them over the last few years. I've not talked about that too much. That's perhaps something just worth noting. In terms of other stuff going on at the club, youth facilities are still being improved. That is set to be done in less than a month's time, which is pretty nice. I want to ask the board for a larger wage budget and transfer budget in January. Of course, getting as far as we have in Europe has helped quite substantially with the finances. We sit at £8 million in the black, which is really, really good. But I do want to invest some of that money if I can get the opportunity. But at the moment, I can't request that because I requested it just a few months ago. And that was actually denied. And I believe that was before we'd actually qualified for the group stage and so inherited all this money that we've kind of accumulated of late. So anyway, that's a little bit about what's going on off the pitch. Of course, not too many games going on here. It's not been long since the last episode, really. In terms of the squad for today's game, we do have a few injuries which have hit the squad of late. I mentioned Lorenko's out injured. He's out for 2 to 3 weeks with a thigh strain. Benyu is also out with a strained stomach muscle, out for 3 to 4 weeks. Marriott, who's playing left back for us, has been out for a little while. If we just look here, you can see he's coming back. He's actually got a fractured wrist at the moment. He's playing with protective equipment, so he's quite, I guess, okay to play in that position for us. Really, I should have Glenn Gilbert on standby on the bench for him for if he does get another knock to his wrist or if his fitness really starts to fail him. On the bench, Sean Jackson is available. He's not going to be playing for us. The young American been out with a longish term injury, strained stomach muscle. That's a 4 to 5 week injury in FM. He's coming back to fitness though, 1 to 6 days away from being fully fit. As a result, I've got him on the bench. He's on standby. Got some really important goals for us earlier on in our Champions League campaign. Been missing out on the group stage because of this injury. But not far away from full fitness him. So anyway, let's get into today's game. I'm going to submit our team. Jay Marriott may be lacking match sharpness. That's a shame. In terms of the team, we are going to be starting, I think, with the 4-4-2 attack. I know that some people are going to be screaming from the rooftops, play counter. And actually, now that I think about it, I kind of want to. The thing that makes me not want to play counter is, against PSG, we played counter and we conceded, was it 5 or 6 goals in the first half? Against AC Milan, we played counter, we conceded 5 goals in the first half and just into the second half. When I've played on attacking, we've conceded less and we've also scored a few. And I kind of feel like if we go on attack and, we get hammered, at least then I can think to myself, we tried. In playing on counter, I feel like it's just not working. We don't have the defensive strength of some teams. And so, kind of for us, the best form of attack, or the best form of defence in this instance, is just to attack and see what we can do. Set piece here anyway. Romero going to collect it. So far, so good though. 20 minutes gone. We're yet to have a shot on target, but that is the only chance of the game so far. And West Ham, they've been kept relatively quiet at the moment, although maybe I'm jinxing that. Looking at their team, they've got a few players. Maximilian Meyer, Zivkovic, Origi I noticed as well. Some really good young players, actually, that West Ham have assembled. I didn't mention it, but looking at the AC Milan team who we played before, they had Martial still as a striker. Of course, he played against us in the Europa League. Can't remember if it was last year or the year before. But yeah, they've still got him. He actually got a few goals against us as well. But at the moment, this is looking okay. West Ham are doing fairly well. Part of me thinks I might be doing this too late. Part of me wants to switch to counter, and the reason I want to switch to counter now as opposed to having started on counter is because we've played attacking in this game. We're not getting a lot going attacking. I'm hoping if we play counter, because the way that West Ham are boxing us in and are having a little bit more possession and are limiting our opportunities, if we can soak up some pressure a little bit better, that's probably going to help us in the long run and potentially open up more of an opportunity than if we were to just simply basically run into a brick wall repeatedly, trying to attack and just being unable to break through. I mean, I might be cursing my luck now because Origi has just scored his 8th goal of the season for West Ham. It's a set piece on the near post. Maximilian Meyer whips in the ball. I've not got highlights on. Let's put them on now. That is because I've turned them off with the demolishing that we had last time out. That is something I need to remember to do. But we didn't miss too much there. It was just a goal from a corner. Although West Ham coming forward with the ball again. Muto, back post Zivkovic. Looked offside. The flag's not risen though. And Zivkovic actually gets only his first goal of the season. And having defended so well in this game, we've switched to counter and we've conceded 2. I mean, is it time to go on attack? Is it that moment? There were perhaps some questions of offside here. I mean, it's hard to tell, especially if that's in the way. Looking at it now, he's miles onside. It's Lowy who keeps him onside, the centre-back. Nice run by Zivkovic. Good cross as well by Muto, but that's a bit of a shame. I think we're going to play on attacking for the second half. I'm going to tell the players that I'm not happy with the first half. My assistant wants me to praise them. I'm not doing that. I'm telling them they were bloody awful. And they know they were awful. They're not even going to contest it. Looking at our team, we have got a few bookings. It's a little bit of a shame that Benyu is out injured because he really is our best defensive midfielder. In his place, we've got Manuel Cruz playing, the American, who's a good player, but he's not great defensively. So we'll see what we can do here. I think I'm going to bring on... Probably wants to bring on Gary, but he's just not a very defensive player. But Bouchard can kind of play defensively, so we'll make that change. And we'll see how we get on. One thing I've actually noticed in training recently is a few of my players, their concentration has risen. And I don't know what that's down to. I don't know if that's down to the overall personality of the squad, if there's a certain coach just working absolute wonders. I was just looking through the progression graphs. I always enjoy just looking at the numbers, month on month, particularly with a young squad like the squad we have and seeing how players are progressing. I think it was Bouchard's concentration went up by 0.8 in a month, so 0.8 of an attribute, which is absolutely insane. You don't see that very often. I think I've only seen that a few other times kind of in FM this year, for a mental stat especially. So that's a pretty promising sign. The reason I mention that is because I was just looking at when we looked at Manuel Cruz there. Noticed his concentration had gone up a lot as well. We do have fairly good coaches, as you guys saw when we went through our coaching setup. In fact, we have the best in the league by a long way, and the majority of the kind of areas of coaching have 3.5 star or 4. And it's good to see that paying off now. We've kind of struggled with our coaching a little bit just because we've had a lot of young prospects who actually aren't that great. But having gone professional over the last 2 years, we've got some very, very talented youngsters, players who my assistant and my rest of my coaching staff certainly rate. And it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. Over the next few years, they're going to be getting regular first-team football with us. There's not a massive kind of competition for the majority of positions. And I'm kind of keen to see how they kind of progress over the next kind of few years. Going to make a double change here. I'm going to take off Jay Marriott, who's got his fractured wrist. He's only on 61% condition. Going to bring Glenn Gilbert on, the man, the myth, the legend. Also going to bring on Sean Jackson, the striker. Mentioned the fact that he's coming back from a strained stomach muscle. Not 100% fit, but we're going to chance him here for the last 20 minutes. He's going to replace Kuka, who was booked, and it just gives us a chance to... test out our first choice strike partnership, but also try and, I guess, reintroduce Jackson to the first team. And, hopefully he can have an impact here. Lays off Stewart, who was tackled by Carter Vickers and now, West Ham with the ball. I mean, it's still only 2-0. Since we've switched to attacking in the second half, I mean, it's worked for us. I really should play counter less often, I feel. Meyer shoots, Brock with the rebound. I mean, I've cursed it there, but Robert Brock with the goal makes it 3-0 to West Ham. And despite the fact it's 3-0, and the fact we've only had one shot on target, I don't feel like we've been completely outclassed this game. It is worth noting, yes, West Ham have had 8 clear-cut chances. They've only scored 3 of them. That is the Origi effect, as Liverpool fans like to call it. But yeah, it's been an okay performance. I guess we've ridden our luck a little bit. It's been a good performance, really, by our defence, particularly the keeper. I'm just hoping now we can keep it to 3-0. Maybe if we can grab a goal, that would be a nice way to round off this game. And we might have a chance here. Stewart, big ball over the top. Can't get to the end of it, unfortunately. Kostic now with the ball in goal. Speaking of goalkeepers, there's actually a goalkeeper who I've been eyeing up for a few months now. I've not really talked about him in live comms because he's just not been an option. But he's a Morocco goalkeeper at international level. He's 21 years old. His name's Bar. I will show you him after this game. And he's a very good goalkeeper. He's available on a free, and he's been available on a free since the summer. I've noticed a lot of big teams are interested in him. And he is actually one of the reasons why I want to try and raise the wage budget and transfer budget, because he kind of wants wages of around £10,000, which we can't afford. But I'll tell you what, he's an insane goalkeeper. He has a bit of the, and so this is a bit of an old school reference, so not everyone's going to get it, but he has a bit of the Zhai Ming about him, who was my Wolverhampton Wanderers Chinese goalkeeper who we had got on a free transfer, in a similar manner to this guy, really. Unfortunately, however, at the moment, Bar's kind of contract demands are proving a little bit of a stumbling block. But I'll just show you him really quickly. I feel like it's of significance for me to mention him at this point, because he is a player who I'm still looking to potentially sign. He's actually asking for £9,000 now. His wage demands are slowly dropping, and I'm hoping that we can take advantage of that soon. Looking at the teams interested in him, some massive teams. He's an insane goalkeeper as well. He's only 21, bow-footed, international. I've tried approaching him on a trial. I'm actually going to try again now. But yeah, he's a player definitely worth keeping an eye out on, and if we can get the wage budget increased, I want to get him in the van if possible. Anyway, looking forward to our next few games. I think the next game we're going to do is PSG at home. I'm not going to do the West Ham at home game just because, well, I feel like we've done a West Ham game now for the West Ham fans to feel pleased about. And we've done a game in England, which is always nice. I don't know if we're also going to do the AC Milan game. I feel like we're already going to be out of contention for a 3rd place finish by this PSG game anyway. I just feel like it's a significant occasion, I guess, to mark with them coming, I guess, to our home ground, to the Victoria Stadium, and hopefully, you know, maybe we can do one over on them. It's worth noting, of course, you know, with the Champions League we've got here, I want to kind of savour it. I want to show you guys some episodes. I want to, you know, show it when we get thumped, like I did in the early Champions League games. You know, I want to show the games where we get absolutely destroyed, so you can really see the progress going on. But at the same time, there's something a little bit demotivating about kind of live coming a 3-goal plus defeat every game. So I think we'll limit it to that PSG game. Hopefully you guys do understand. Hopefully, you know, you never know, could maybe grab something there. It's going to be a massive ask. But anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up everything from me. hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, smash the like button. If you've got any comments, leave them down below. And other than that, it is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.